Galnet News Digest, 12th of November 3305. We read the news so you don't have to. In this week's news, thousands flock to assist ancient ship. Golconda voting begins soon. Speedbowl 3 concludes. The 2020 update. Thousands flock to assist ancient ship. Following last week's discovery of the Golconda, which despite its name is not an anaconda and doesn't have a gold paint job, but is in fact that rarest of discoveries, a generation ship whose crew has somehow managed not to eject themselves into space, lose power and freeze to death, or be attacked and killed by pirates, a generation ship in short that still has living people on board. And following the revelation that the people on board the Golconda are running a bit low on basic provisions after more than 1,000 years in space, and following the revelation that there might be a decal in it for those who take part, pilots have come rushing to provide assistance in the form of supplies. More than 10 million tons of supplies have already been delivered to the crew and passengers of the veteran sublight Leviathan, whose inhabitants apparently decided to stay on board after the ship reached its intended destination, on the grounds that after 1,000 years they'd sort of got used to it. The famished crew have been looking forward most especially to eating a massive steak and kidney pie with Yorkshire pudding and gravy, roast potatoes and all the trimmings, so they may in due course, as they start to sort through the millions of cargo canisters that are now completely obscuring the hull of their ship, be somewhat disappointed to find that apart from a welcome top-up to the ship's medicine cabinet, the galactic community has decided that the best things to deliver to the hungry generation ship would be aluminium, ceramic composites, and semiconductors. You can do a lot with aluminium, ceramic composites, and semiconductors, but eating them is not one. The pilots busily delivering far more semiconductors than 1,000 generation ships could ever use, even if their ancient technology was compatible with the latest silicon, which it isn't, may come to be surprised at just how grateful the crew of the Golconda are for the galaxy's generosity, which is to say, not at all. Golconda voting begins soon. Having heard about the miraculous survival of the inhabitants of the Golconda, the leaders of the Federation and the Empire, President Hudson and Emperor Lavigny Duval, are reported to be thinking about encouraging the settlers to join their respective powers. The settlers on the Golconda have not been consulted about this development, but that apparently doesn't matter. The way it'll work is this. Commanders who think the settlers on the Golconda should become citizens of the Empire will be encouraged to help create a lovely new planetary base on an airless world for the settlers. Those who think the Federation would be better for the settlers will simultaneously help to build a remote outpost to house the settlers. Whichever side builds their base first will get to abduct the unwilling settlers from the Golconda and install them in whichever new home it is. In order to encourage this highly democratic process, both the Empire and the Federation intend to bribe commanders with offers of swifter rank advancement and cheaper spaceships, and with that decal, which won't be available until either the base or the outpost has been constructed, so anyone hauling for it now is wasting their time. Whichever side wins will also gain control of a mysterious new rare good called Appa Vieti, or Water of Life, which may or may not be the finest Scotch whisky. All this activity, building bases and ranking up in the Federation or Empire, is expected to last until about a week before Christmas, which is when fleet carriers won't be available for commanders to buy. Speedbowl 3 concludes. The air traffic controllers of Margulis Depot in the 61 Virginis system breathed a collective sigh of relief this week at the conclusion of the Speedbowl 3 tower buzzing event. The fastest ships recorded were flown by commanders Phebia and Verminus, which clocked top speeds of 4,112 and 4,111 metres per second each, just a shade under 12 times the speed of sound. The fastest speed between the twin towers of Margulis Depot was Commander Alien Hunter PL, who scraped his wings off both towers at a far more leisurely 4,104 metres per second, which is still pretty much 12 times the speed of sound. Quite apart from having the windows of the control tower shattered every few minutes, by the end of the weekend the air traffic controllers were reportedly getting a bit fed up of starting to read out the welcome message, only to find the ship that they were addressing was already 300 kilometres away over the horizon. Galactic authorities have expressed their fervent wish that this should be the last ever Speedball competition. The 2020 update. A leaked memo from a top-secret meeting of the shadowy organisation said to be behind the Pilots Federation reports a sneaky plan. Apparently, the code underlying the galaxy is a bit of a rat's nest and desperately needs a makeover. This is being undertaken in a project codenamed the 2020 Update, presumably because of the clear vision of the future the project creates. The makeover, which will be sold to commanders other than those who are wise enough to opt for a lifetime of expansions, will become available in what is described as the second half of next year, so that means Christmas time. The 2020 update will deliver the original vision of Braben, together with more tutorial missions. Commanders can look forward to landing on airless planets, driving around in an SRV, advanced features such as power play and close quarters combat, engineering their ships, and a strange race of aliens known as the Thargoids. All of these new features, but without any of the bugs that a minority of commanders have reported. The 2020 update will also bring the prospect of fleet carriers, which are expected to be delivered about 6 months later. The Pilots Federation is believed to feel confident that commanders will feel right at home while using the new software. And that's this week's Galnet News. Galnet News, we read the news so you don't have to.